beginning by our first session on good practices to start the way we analyze data with the best baseline, reproducible science and open data, and facing ecological emergency in the lab. The first talk, Open Science, a Dynamic Ecosystem, is given by Gaëlle Leroux. She's a research engineer working here on the CRNL and specialized on neuroimaging. She's also an open science advocate. Thank you, and now let's welcome Gaëlle Leroux.
Thank you very much, Alexandra, and thank you for the invitation. I'm pleased today to talk about open science as a dynamic ecosystem. So first of all, the question is to know why and to open up science. One of the definition I really like is first is to open up the results of science, whatever the format is, and also a new way of doing research that involves opening up processes, codes, methods, protocols, everything, not only the paper at the end. And this movement comes from a contest about the publishers and the financial economic system 30 years ago. I also like the INRAE definition of open science, where they say that open science is a movement that involves new stakeholders, such as everyday citizens and non-research organizations, to make the products of research more accessible and more reusable for the scientific community at first, and also for society at large. And open science is not a good way, but that's the best way to advance knowledge and to build trustworthy relationships with multiple stakeholders. As a general definition, open science is called an umbrella term, which covers open access, open data, and other notions here. These are the badges you can find on papers or on websites when it assesses that it is real open data. It's not just an image close to the dataset. And this way of conducting science is often thought as the way it is. We're also probably numerous to think that it was the case before we entered academia, but it's not, so at least not that much. So what I'm going to talk about today is reproducibility mainly. And I take the definition, which is here, proposed by the Turing Way project, the Turing Way community, is talking about data analysis according to the fact that it is same data and same analysis, then it's called reproducible science, and the other cases. The last one, the generalizable case, is less often reachable because it has to be much more global. And this problematic of opening up science arise even more with the fact that the quantity of data has been increased very much across decades, the last decades. Here is just a simple output from PubMed about the publications when you tag EEG results or MEG results, but that's the same for the data, even more, I would say, and even for science in general. And based on that, Ioannidis published a provocative paper with a provocative title in 2005, when he claimed that most published research findings are false, which is something which is problematic, of course. One article, you can see here's the stats on the left, which has been very much read and shared. In this paper, Ioannidis argued that in many papers, almost in most papers, we do adopt inadequate methodologies because of the effect size, which are way too small, the great number and lesser preselection of tested relationships, hierarchy, the great flexibility in designs, definitions, outcome, and analytical modes, and due to the pressure of financial and other interest. And the propensity also to publish only from us and also from publishers, only to publish positive results. And due to the fact that we call it publish or perish culture. It's super provocative, it's super highly cited, and based on this, another highly cited article again made by Monia Baker in 2016. She was doing a survey over disciplines and over the globe and asking simple questions like the first one to know if scientists were thinking that there is a reproducibility crisis. Half of the respondents said yes. And you can see that even some people say there's no crisis, and some people, maybe people who just enter academia, are not aware of this kind of notion. And this has been seen in all disciplines. It's not, it's very general. This is one point of view. Other people also say that it's not a reproducibility crisis. People argue that science in the red part, with paywall, non-shared data, closed tool and software, protocols which are not reproducible, with anonymous peer review, and this culture of publish or perish, is not science, but broken science. And people like this panda on the top left saying that this is my object, my project, my data, my protocol. I don't want to share it. And what we call open science, these people argue that it is just science. We should do this in a normal way. So whatever you think it's the term of reproducibility crisis or not, what we agree about is that no transparency means no consensus. And this has to be what we should aim for. Another point I want to emphasize today is also that reproducibility is not a binary notion. It's rather a continuum. And that's one of the key messages I want you to keep in mind from today, at least, is that we need to go to further reproducibility. This is our gold standard. Maybe we're not going to reach it right away for the next project, but at least we have to go through this direction. And this is not that simple. It's a real cultural change. And this has to be possible thanks to this quite classical way to make the infrastructure make it possible. To make it reproducible, we need infrastructures. We can't do it in our labs just by our own. We need to make it easy with user interface or user experience. We need to make it normative, rewarding, and required. And to make it normative is through community. And we are today representatives of one community or two communities with EG and MEG. So if we want it like this, we as individuals, each of us has to go towards this direction. It's not only coming from institutions or European Commission or whatever. We have to push to this direction by ourselves as a community, as we are today and during this conference, for example. So that's one of my second key message as well, that if we want that opening science is the norm, we have to do it by ourselves. And data sharing is becoming the norm in neuroimaging. It doesn't begin today, of course. So it's pushing in this way, and we have to help to push it. Another thing I like to present in this case is when I began science almost 20 years ago, I was mostly in this top, in the case of collecting the data from my project, publishing the results, and then don't use anymore the data. And if I would have to reanalyze the data I was collecting when I was a PhD student, I could not, which is a waste of time, a waste of effort, and that's a pity. Instead, we should go through reproducibility, validation, and new hypothesis by sharing the data for each protocol, at least for the next protocols. And in this article, this was the current paradigm and future paradigm. As before, I would say, no, that was the previous paradigm. The current paradigm is to share data. And to do so, we have to also consider, when we begin a project, to reuse data. Before planning our study, did we ever consider that we could reuse data which are open data, which are open available? How many times did I want to reuse some data? Not that much. I should go into this kind of cultural change even myself, I would say. And that's not that evident anyway, but we have to go through this. So if I would put some key message for that, especially for project leaders at this time, is to consider data sharing from the beginning, because it means a lot of steps which will be much more easier if it's planned from the beginning. And another thing is to consider data reusing before planning the study, before collecting data, to save time, to save money. So about the tools, because at some point neuroimaging and neuroscience is a matter of tools. So how do we do that? Because we need to go through a jungle of tools, and we have to know which are the best one, the most adapted, the best one. These illustrations come from this recent article by Guillaume Arnizo and colleagues, and they pinpoint some tools, not all of them, because we can't, for neuroscience, according to the steps through our project. So I really recommend to read and to go back to this article. So as you see in the study preparation, to ensure quality of data and design is a plan as the very first step. Some tools are cited here. I added two more. One is the Neurosync Compose, which is to help to do the introduction, or what for a PhD, for a master thesis, or even for an article, to summarize and to do like a small meta-analysis to be sure that the hypothesis targets the right regions. And also to help to do a machine-readable and human-readable data management plan. So we do have a French tool, which is DMP Opidor, which is the tool to use when you want to prepare your study. Pre-registration, so that's something which has to be emphasized as well. These are the tools which are dedicated to this step. And pre-registration of a project can be with peer review or without peer review. When we talk about registered reports, it's a pre-registered project with peer review. It means that through the steps, you have to submit your manuscript twice, not once as we usually do in classical science. So before any data collection, you send your manuscript to a publisher who send it to reviewers to evaluate if the hypothesis and if the design study are good enough and solid enough to test the assumption. And if everything is clear, then you have the green light to go and collect your analyzer data, write the report as you plan to do so, and test only what you were supposed to test, your hypothesis. And then there's a stage 2 peer review before publishing it. So that could be one option to these registered reports to help to prevent from publishing only positive results. Here is just one figure from a recent article as well, which compared in standard reports and in registered reports, how many of them published positive results or half as it was in registered report. So we do, and publishers do, publish only or mainly positive results. And it's of course what not occur in our lab, in our projects. If we continue on the ethics and sharing plan, we are of course under the law, of course, and some regulations. And it's not always simple to distinguish what's possible or not according to the humans we enroll in our project and how to share the data, what we can, what we can't, well, that's about it. So in the article, they also emphasize the open brain consent community, which raised from neuroimaging community at large to propose some consent forms which are good, which are compliant with the law and with the GDPR when you are in Europe. And here is, I won't go through everything, but it gives examples in different languages, in English, in French, in Italian, in Spanish, regarding the local laws as well, regarding the French law, regarding the Spanish law, regarding the European law, and everything. And it proposed additional consent to propose to our participants to ask them if they would agree to share their data, anonymized, of course, with the respect of their private life, of course, but it is possible to do it. For that, we need some consent in addition to the usual consent for the project. So this is a guideline and a guide to help to find the appropriate sentences for that. Monitoring quality from the very beginning, from the point we collect data, is also a key point when talking about open science, because sharing bad data or bad data set is quite easy. I can open my computer hard disk. That's not useful at all. It has to be monitored according to the quality of it. So some tools are here listed. Regarding data acquisition for brain data, here are also some tools which are listed. And regarding the stimulus, again, we're not used to share our stimuli, our experiments as the subjects saw them. The stimuli as the subjects saw them, yes, right. So use open source softwares. We have many of them available on the market, so use them and report everything coming from the software to do the stimuli on through the study. The authors also put some highlight on the research data management regarding data sets and how they are organized with the bids with the bid structure. And It could be associated with some electronic lab boots. So one point on beads, which is one of the major tools we do have in neuroimaging. It comes from the community. According to the data type, there are some specific standards which describe how the directories and how the files should be named to respect this standard. So it's not a new format of a file, it's just the way we name the folders and the files so that it's human readable, but also machine readable. So you can apply tools which are automated based on this tree organization and file naming. For Meg, it looks like this, for example. And there are converters to help to do so. Don't do it by hand. Metadata and data annotation is one of the points we not used to do. It's to add information about how we did the project on every step and try to track all the provenance, all the versions, all the factors, all the choice we made through our project. Again, this is there are tools to help to do so at the project level. Data processing and analysis, there's a bunch of tools for that. So don't hesitate to test one or the other for the data, for the codes, for the software, for all these steps. We do have many options and tools for us to do it. So adopt one of them and go through your project with that. Open data and analysis software are essential for reproducibility in data analysis. That's the core of reproducibility. I'm going a little bit faster about dissemination, which has dissemination of data sets. First of all, we have to know who is doing this. To do so, there's an ORCID, which is a number we can have individually. As long as we are scientists, we go on this website, and it's a global non-profit making organization which gives you a number and makes possible to track who is behind this number. And it's one number, one person, and you can use it through all the steps of your project, not only when you publish your article. It's going on for it. It helps you to reproduce and to track you all project long. There's also the question about the repository, where to put the data when you want to share them. Again, there are many of them. Ask for help if you want to choose the best one, the most adapted one. I added the Omega data repository in addition to the one listed there. Code sharing, similarly, and derived data sharing is again of importance. About code sharing, I added the software heritage platform, which aims to archive all codes and all versions of codes and softwares, including all versions of software published. And Cascade, which is a certification you can add to your code and data to help you to publish your results. About the open access, there are platforms. Archive platforms are the most known. And in France, we also have the HAL archive dedicated to articles. That's because I should be down, right?
Let me.
I can mimic the figures for the next ones, but my next slide was about Artemis and Cobida's tool, which are super valuable too. They are made by people who didn't want to write the method section in articles. They were too lazy, they claimed. So they collected the good practices report from which were published, and they made a questionnaire. So you fulfill the questionnaire adapted to EEG data or MEG data or whatever is your data type. And after all the information you put in the questionnaire, then you have to copy paste the paragraph in your method section because it describes all the parameters of your studies. And it asks for that many that you're not supposed to forget any of the parameters. So this is called the Cobida's initiative. You can find it on internet. And dedicated to EEG, it's Artemis. My slides will be shared on my profile, so you can find these references afterwards. Don't worry. Oh, okay, never mind. Thank you very much again. Artemis, it looks like this. You fulfill all the questions and you don't forget any item. All the tools which are listed here, I will let you discover them because I'm really late. This was a very good news published this summer. It was one article to reproduce a large EEG data set, which is called the reference here. They took the data from an open data set, and the authors tried to reanalyze the same data with different tools, with different software, EEG Lab, Brainstorm, and Filtrip. And the conclusion is quite positive, which is not the case in fMRI, for example. It's super variable. So this was a very good news. There are bad news as well, but this one is a good one, a recent one. So I really encourage you to look into this article to learn how to report your data and what is the effect of the software tool on the analysis of EEG results. Slight differences are just due to software. Some readings, you will click on the image and you will have information in French, in English, dedicated to PhD students and more advanced scientists. There's also a MOOC in English and French. I really highly recommend to go through this. And 2 workshops coming soon. So my almost last slide is, wherever you are on the open science journey, there are tools to make it easier and more reproducible. And you're not alone. There's a bunch of people around you who can help you. So please ask. And also, humans make mistakes, and that's not fraud. It's just mistake. We do that. So self-correct the bugs and check the impact of them and be patient. That's kind of some recipes which help a lot. And this is the thank you slide, the last one. And this work has been possible because of our director of this lab, Olivier Bertrand. So I really want to thank him. And also because from his wish to make open science real in our lab or more advanced, many groups have emerged. The Open Science Group, Scientific Integrity Group, Methodology and Neuroimaging. These are valuable groups which help local people here. And thank you for inspiring colleagues in networks and communities such as BEATS and Open Science, and all these colleagues who help to make a better science.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you so much. Sorry, we are a bit late, running out of time, so we will not take questions. I'm sorry for that. And technical issue too. The next talk would be on ecological emergency, what labs can and can't do, by Maximilien Chaumont. He's a research engineer at the Paris Brain Institute. He founded Cutting EG 10 years ago, and he's involved in the Labo 1.5 network. So let's welcome our next speaker, Maximilien Chaumont.
Hello, everybody. First, big thank you to Alex and the organizing team in general for having me here. While I wait for my presentation, I can start by perhaps picking a few opinions on the current situation about the state of the world in terms of climate and emergency. I don't know, how do you feel? Do you think that the situation is okay, rather preoccupying, or really terribly preoccupying? If you think we're okay, we're going to solve it, please raise your hand now. If you're slightly preoccupied and you think that actually we have the resources to solve it, please go ahead and raise your hand now and start raising it a little bit. And I see a few hands. If you think we are really in deep trouble, raise your hand now. Okay, so there's a few more. Thanks for sharing your opinion. Now I'm going to start with the real presentation. C'est bon, je balance comme ça? No? Okay. Okay. Voilà, so I personally have real trouble going home and like reading about the news, the flooding everywhere, fire and storms, and this is quite depressing. I have 2 kids. It can be quite challenging at times. Data to analyze and projects to run, and this is quite troubling. It's this kind of double reality that we are living in is really troublesome for me, and therefore I'm more and more taking more and more time in my daily routine to actually take care of such topics. I am taking part in the Labo 1.5 initiative that I'm going to tell you a little more about. I also created a local initiative in the ICM where I work called the Green Team that has made some progress in trying to cope with the current situation in a principled way. Do you know who said this? Climate change is here, it is terrifying, and it is just the beginning. Any idea? Emmanuel Macron? Greta Thunberg? Climate change is here, it is terrifying, and it is just the beginning. No? Okay, it is Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the UN. So not the kind of guy who gives you his opinion. The full quote is at the bottom. It is quite preoccupying. So there are reasons to be troubled, right? But I don't think I need to convince you. Our planet is in an emergency state. Planetary boundaries, these 9 boundaries that have been highlighted by scientists over the past years, have been passed for 6 of them. Climate change is one, but novel entities, so all the stuff that we put in the atmosphere and the environment, biosphere integrity are others, the biochemical flows, and many more. So this is really troubling. However, today I'm going to talk about climate change because it is the most, perhaps the most pressing one and the most tractable one, because we can solve it if we manage to lower our emissions of greenhouse gases, CO2 being the most potent one. Now, the worldwide community is taking actions. The global Paris Agreement in 2015 has designed a few scenarios and pathways for us to limit the global heating to 1.5 degrees. At 2 degrees, we are really facing a huge risk. We're on our way to 3 degrees at the moment. Nationally, in France, the Stratégie Nationale Bas Carbone is targeting minus 30% of greenhouse gas emission by 2030. And they have a plan, and we should be able to follow it if the volonté was there. Sorry. In the academia, a few papers have come out. Last year in December, the Comité d'éthique of the CNRS has issued a statement saying that it is our ethical responsibility to integrate the environmental impacts of our research. And this is what I will talk about. Labo 1.5 has been founded almost 5 years ago now, and is our main tool to manage to do this. And I'm going to go into the details of what the Labo 1.5 suggests as a procedure to do this. First, take a few lab mates, create a collective. Each lab needs to have such collectives, and start brainstorming about ways to change things. Getting the director's approval is also extremely important. You're not going to do anything if you don't have your directors behind you. Then assessing the greenhouse gas emission footprint of your lab is the very first step. Brainstorming for potential actions and creating a plan with measurable objectives is the next one. Consulting all parties in your lab, so all the people involved, not only scientists, but also the technicians and administrative people in the lab, so that everybody is on board. This is a recommendation of the IPCC, the GIEC, for possible transition. Yeah. And then apply, advertise what you've done, and look back to one. This looks like a big task, right? But fortunately, Labo 1.5 is here to help with the GES 1.5 tool, first to assess your greenhouse gas emissions. So your lab can do it now, here at the CNRL, but also wherever you are from. And I'm going to explain a little more. Then to create plans and measurable objectives, Scenario 1.5 is here to help. And I'm going to go into details. And throughout the process, the Transition 1.5, so the network of transitioning labs, is here to help also collect and share initiatives and what works, what doesn't work across labs. Dedicated tools, so they have a whole platform of apps in Labo 1.5 that I'm telling you about. GES 1.5, that allows you to measure your greenhouse gases. It was designed by researchers. It's made for all science fields, so you can also advertise it to your other science friends in other fields of science. Scenario 1.5. Okay, I'm kind of repeating, and I need to rush also. So it's a comprehensive tool, has lots of options, lots of ideas also to get from it. And it helps you set measurable targets to pull down our emissions, which is our only way out here. One word about where I'm from, the ICM, Paris Brain Institute, a huge, big center, but comparable to here in size. A lot of budget, which is on the one hand very nice for research, but also a curse in terms of like the more you spend, the more you emit. Yes, and a green team of about 7 or more active members, 5 years of existence. We're getting momentum. We had a master intern last year, which helps a lot. If you have the occasion in your local green, I don't remember the name of your climate group, get a master intern, it helps a lot. The carbon footprint of the ICM is 9,000 tons, well, almost 10. that's 15 tons per person. I don't know if you have an idea of how much we emit as French citizens. We're around 10 tons per person per year, of which 1.5 ton about is for the public services, in which our activity as researchers should be included. Just by working in my lab, you are emitting 15 tons. That's a lot. I don't know how much it is here, but it is probably less, but still quite a lot. And what we found is that 95% of this activity is purchases, lab purchases, chemicals, experiments, like everything that is actually for science. So we are not going to solve it by not taking planes. You see, transportation is over there. Heating, electricity are a reasonable amount of emissions. Purchases are our big problem. And here are a few ideas. As I just said, we need to target purchases. And unfortunately, what we have in mind right now is mostly targeting those most obvious things like, yeah, don't take the plane. But you see, like for us, plane is really this 2% of our emissions. So we're not going to fix it this way. How do I transition here? Okay, I want to say a few words about this scenario 1.5 thing. Once you have your carbon footprint, scenario 1.5 is this very nice tool that allows you choose, you add a measure. Okay, I'm going to reduce purchases by 50% for until 2030. Okay, and then this thing computes how much you're going to save by changing a few actions like this. As much as I could do here, I managed to get 17% down. This is not getting us where we need to go. That's perhaps my main message here. We need to do it, but we are not there. So we need to also think more globally and transition to our, where am I with time? Okay. Transition a little further. For this tool is coming up. It's not there yet, so I'm going to skip that because I have no time, but the presentation will be online and please look at it. It's going to be a community, lots of help also from a big network. Take a look at it. Now there's an elephant in the room, right? Greening our labs is not going to be enough. We cannot keep doing all the research that we do. It is important to keep doing what's important for our science, but we need to select. And I'm sorry I have to say that. We don't have time to first reduce what does not impact research and then work on this hard problem. We really have to tackle this right now. It's not moving? Yes, it is. And we need to get out of this double reality I was talking about at the beginning. Okay, we cannot just think at home, oh yeah, we need to do something, and then come in the lab and keep doing our research as usual. Okay, otherwise we're going to just green our labs in a burning world. Changing takes time. We need to start now. Okay, this is what we don't want to do. How do I compress this? That's my thoughts now. So how do you think about the expected impact of your research? We have an ethical responsibility to account for our environmental impacts in research. I said that already. Beyond the strictly scientific impact of research projects, we cannot afford research just because we can. We have to, like for animal research, start thinking and integrating the environmental impact in the evaluation of process of our research. I say like for animal research because for animal research earlier, it was just like, yeah, we need to not harm those animals too much. And then over the past years, the procedures have become tighter and it has become more and more difficult to actually, or like you have to plan your research properly before you use animals. We have to plan our research properly before we do experiments. We have to think about the impact of our research. Probably differentiating clinical versus basic research. We'll have to take that on a domain-specific way. Okay. I wish I would have time to explain all of this. We need to think about the implementation for our projects right now, but also think a little further. the impacts of the branch of projects that we're going through. Okay, if a research project you do now is just to finish your paper, that's fine, but it's only if your project is only worth after another 10 years of experiments, then this should also be accounted for when you plan your experiments, right? And there's also, of course, the potential for deleterious applications. So, you know, I mean, the typical example is the nuclear research, if you think about the potential difficulties afterwards. This is just like brainstorming with you before starting a project. So we need to think about the expected scientific impact, see if it's worth it, the ecological impact as well, and ask ourselves, can we renounce running this project? That's the difficult question, but we need to ask it. Can we reuse previous data? That's linking to open science, right? Reducing the number of subjects, experiments, materials that we need to do. Refining our procedures to account for their emissions, replace with alternative methodologies. Okay, so we're currently in our green team at ICM really trying to tackle these questions. How can we do this? It's difficult, and we cannot answer it right now. I hope I'm not leaving you with two empty hands. I'm happy to discuss this further with you all. This setting that Alex put together here is, I think, the right place to also start talking about these. I'm happy if we don't skip the break to talk about it. Take your responsibility. We're in a privileged position here. This is a discussion I've been having with Alex a few times. We are very privileged to be here in this very nice setting. You know, nobody is struggling as much as others are in other positions. It is our duty to act wisely now and together. This is just wishful thinking, right? Future generations are watching us. Let's get at it right now. This meeting, as I just said, is a great place to start. Talk to me if you want to talk about it right now. Thank you so much. Thank you, Labo 1.5, for the great initiative they do. Thanks to my green team at ICM. Well, they don't hear us, but I like to thank them because all these thoughts are for them. And thank you all for your attention.